Good afternoon. My name is Heidi. I'm head of investment products for Wave Digital Assets. Thank you so much, Sandra, and the entire GBBC team for hosting this event and for inviting us. We are thrilled and honored to participate. Though I do have to say I'm probably going to be the little dark spot in the conversation today, as I'm going to be talking about bankruptcies and crime and what is being done with those crypto assets. So I think it was Albert Einstein that said something about technological progress is like an axe in the hands of a pathological criminal. And unfortunately, as much as we've seen wonderful innovation in this space and beautiful use cases, the criminals always seem to be a step or two ahead. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But before I go into that, let me give you just who we are at Wave, unless you've heard of us. Wave Digital Assets, we are one of the very few predominantly crypto and digital asset investment advisors that is also registered with the SEC. Yes, they actually do exist post-FTX. There aren't very many of us, but there are a few. The firm started in Los Angeles. One of our co-founders was a VC, one of the few in Southern California, and he got exposed to Bitcoin early on. And then you probably remember in 2017, the ICO bubble took place in Los Angeles, and there were a lot of crypto whales that came out of that. Well, these crypto whales were holding on to crypto assets, and they wanted, like a wealth manager, somebody to help them with their crypto exposure, help them find better custodial solutions, generate yield, do something other than have it just sit there. So that was the impetus of Wave Digital Assets is, there's going to be a need to help people who've got crypto. But we want to do it the right way. We want to lean into regulation from day one. This journey has not been easy because, as you know, in the DNA of Web3, a lot of it is all about disintermediating and stepping outside of regulation. And we went the other way with the goal of being SEC registered. So we're very proud and we take our SEC registration very seriously. Our bread and butter, I skipped there. I'm so excited to talk about us. So as taking part of the SEC taking that very seriously, I do have to let you know that anything I say here is not any kind of financial advice, but happy to talk with you after. Our bread and butter is that we work with some of the world's largest protocols. We help them manage their treasury from anything from finding custodial solutions to helping them generate yield on their tokens or their other tokens that they might be holding. So that could be derivatives, staking, deploying into DeFi. And we also help to set up ecosystems as well. So if they're looking to launch a DeFi ecosystem, we could help them with that as well with liquidity provisioning for that ecosystem. So I mentioned that because I wanted to just give a flavor of our deep involvement with Web3. We really interact, as I mentioned, with crypto whales and protocols, and we also have several private place funds. So these funds are Bitcoin derivatives, an NFT fund, a DeFi fund, early stage venture, and crypto index. Again, very, very Web3. We're trying to apply traditional financial instruments into the Web3 world. So as a result of this, I would say, and I wanted to introduce Cliff Kautsky, who's also in our room. Sorry, Cliff, he is new to our team as of March. He is helping spearhead our government relations initiative. So back in March, we hired Cliff. There was an opportunity that came, before we hired him, there was an opportunity that came our way. It was an SEC receivership. It was a small one. But there were these difficult to unwind tokens, and it was a crypto Ponzi scheme, so there were victims involved. And they came to Wave and said, we need to get rid of these tokens so we can help the victims be made whole as much as possible. It was really a problem for this receivership. Cliff at the time was working for a track and trace firm, and we were able to help this SEC receivership unwind their assets and make those victims whole. And we realized, wow, this is probably the beginning of a whole new, unfortunate industry in which there will be lots of bankruptcies, and we're assuming there's going to be a lot of government-seized assets. And sure enough, another opportunity came our way. It was a very large exchange, one of those headliners. And we also helped them unwind their digital assets and helped to make their clients whole as well. That was into the multiple millions. And so Cliff then joined our team, and since then we have been on a journey to connecting with numerous bankruptcies and speaking to government agencies. And I thought I'd give you a little bit of statistics about this, and this is more anecdotal of what we're experiencing, what we're seeing in the current industry today, and some possible solutions. So I think we're all aware of the headline bankruptcies. Obviously, well, I'll skip FTX for a second, but Genesis Global, which was an exchange, Celsius, which was a lender, Voyager, which is an exchange, Three Arrows Capital, which was a hedge fund, and Gemini Trust, which was an exchange, and then, of course, we all know FTX. One thing I do want to point out for those of you that are not native to Web3, all of these firms were centralized firms. So there are firms in this space that were practicing lending, which was decentralized finance, that were truly decentralized, and they did not have any failure issues. So that's something that I just wanted to point out. Unfortunately, the centralized, we call it CFI, centralized financial institutions, like many other types of cases in the past, were not open with their books, or there was not a lot of clarity in what was going on behind the scenes, and subsequently there were significant bankruptcies. So a lot of these bankruptcies they represent billions. We've looked at numbers anywhere 5 billion, 10 billion, 20 billion of assets and liabilities that these firms collectively represented. And this led to what we call the crypto winter, where the market has lost over 2 trillion in estimated value. Some of the tokens lost up to 100% in value. And perhaps even more important, there were over 1.5 million creditors and investors that are not going to be made whole. Perhaps they've lost their life savings or are still waiting, and that because their assets are frozen at the time. And coming from this space, I saw that tremendous numbers of jobs that have been lost, how it's impacted companies as well. They might not have gone bankrupt, but the impact on companies has been very painful and severe. And then also just the reputation of crypto and unfortunately blockchain and Web3 and NFTs, they all got rolled up into one. So there has been quite a bit of pain as a result of that. The crypto crime scene, this breaks my heart, because I got into blockchain to help improve the world. And as Cliff and I have been meeting with more government agencies, it's almost like that veil has been lifted, and to see how much the criminals are utilizing crypto is heartbreaking. Of course, they use dollars, so it's not crypto's fault, but and again, I don't understand why they use crypto, because we can track the crypto, but they are. And I want to say credit Chainalysis for this information. We're seeing such an increase in crypto-related crimes. You can see back in 2017, there was only roughly about 5 billion of seized assets, and now this past year was over 20 billion. And a lot of that is coming from things like ransomware, money laundering, stolen funds, the darknet scams. Any kind of crime you can think of, there is crypto. Arms dealing, human trafficking, terrorism, drug dealing, it's there. So what this is now doing for government agencies is alerting government agencies of, okay, there is a tremendous opportunity / responsibility to seize these crypto assets. And we're seeing one of the IRS really being the leading investigative firm in this space in the world at the time. They've seized in 2022 7 billion of assets, more than double in 2021, and I have a feeling they have probably more assets than that. But just anecdotally, Cliff and I have been speaking with government agencies both in the United States, state level, federal level, and then also outside of the US. And a lot of the agencies are aware that the criminals are utilizing crypto, but they just don't have the education or the tools. So I think an opportunity is wonderful opportunity to work with GBBC or other organizations that help with education to help government agencies as they ramp up their investigative services. But if, for example, we spoke to a border state here in the US that has been seeing their treasury of caught fiat going down, and the reason most likely is because because criminals are utilizing crypto. So they are sitting on possibly millions, hundreds of millions of potentially seized assets that they could get from the drug cartel. And unfortunately, because there's so much education on what is crypto, how do you seize it? How do you move it once you've seized it? How do you securely store it? And then the laws around it, they're just starting to get into this. And then Cliff and I have spoken to agencies around the world, and at the moment, they're also really starting to get into this. So this is the very, very beginning of this industry. So I will because this is the beginning, I will talk a little bit about some anecdotal issues that we're seeing in this space and possible solutions that a firm like maybe Wave or other firms could help. One of the things that we strongly believe, when assets are seized, it's important to know what those assets are. And unless you're in Web3, it could be very difficult. So, for example, if you could seize Bitcoin, but maybe the agency or maybe the receivership has it as well DeFi tokens and are unaware, okay, well, the DeFi token, I can't claw it back. If I claw it off of a smart contract, I'm actually going to be penalized with fees. And we actually did see that with one of the firms that were involved with a trustee. It wasn't a large amount, but they clawed back DeFi tokens, and they lost on the yields, and then they were penalized with fees. Or what do you do with NFTs and airdrops? These are kind of the unique nuances that you don't really see in traditional, either physical or other kinds of financial instruments that are seized. Other issues that have come up are, this is just, will make your stomach turn, is sometimes some agencies have admitted that they don't know, they didn't know, so they might have seized an asset that was on a thumb drive, and on that thumb drive could have been sitting $1 million, $50 million plus worth of digital assets, and threw it in a drawer at some desk, not understanding that, if somebody else has the access codes and the keys, those assets can be swiped, and that has happened. So the question now is, and I think agencies are becoming more sophisticated that they just don't throw it in a drawer, but they're still out there. They're still maybe holding on to it themselves, or not fully understanding that, okay, you should maybe custody it with a qualified custodian that has insurance. There's a lot of, again, nuances with custody as well. Another area that we have been discovering is disposal and liquidity of those assets. That's not really as easy as just going on to a US-based exchange and, trading those assets. What if you're sitting on $100 million worth of a token that is ranked maybe 50th, and you go to cash that? Well, you're going to really severely affect the market pricing of that. And that has altercations afterwards for other people. So that's an issue. Or one thing that's really come up recently is agencies that have seized. Now criminals are starting to catch on that, wow, you can track and trace Bitcoin and ETH. So they're starting to use privacy tokens. Well, here's a big problem. Governments are starting to seize privacy tokens, and how do we handle that? What if there was a victim involved? What if there was some sort of ransom and that victim had to pay in Monero, for example? Well, now how do you make that victim whole if we are not allowed to liquidate that token because that token may be considered contraband because it's a privacy token? And so these are some issues that actually are real life issues that we're speaking to government agencies, and there is no clarity at the moment. But that's a big one. As we see more criminals utilizing privacy tokens, there has to be some sort of solution for that. And then another one is returning assets to victims. You know, if you've got hundreds of millions of dollars worth of assets, how do you return it? Do you return it in the underlying asset? Do you cash it out? Or do you put into stable coins? There's all of these, and then there are so many laws or no laws or clarity around that. One interesting thing on number 5 that we have found with a court-appointed bankruptcy trustee situation out of Europe, some of you in this room may know that a lot of the bankruptcies, the fees have been so extremely exorbitant. The fees have been going to the law firms, consulting firms, investment banks. And while they are much needed, every time a penny or Satoshi or Sat goes to one of these firms, it's taken out of perhaps a creditor, debtor, or a victim's pocket. And these bills are tremendous, tremendous, tremendous sized bills. So an interesting thing came to us. This is out of Europe. This bankruptcy came to us and said, you know, to help pay for these fees, maybe we could utilize staking. And staking is almost like a money market kind of account. Now, there's technology risk, but maybe the amount of money we would have cashed or the amount of crypto we would have cashed, maybe we could put that in staking, and then the yield that is generated help pay for legal fees and consulting fees and so forth. So this is something that we're also exploring. Last but not least, which I think is the most important, is education. We are really, we would love to join any organization like GBBC, but strongly believe that education is key. This is something that we're providing as a service. We recently hired Dr. David Uske, who came to us from one of the largest federal agencies where he led criminal investigations on the cyber side. And he's helping us put together curriculum for large agencies here in the US, and we're sharing that with any agencies outside of the US and also state level. We also have one of our co-founders, Benjamin Tsai, who is a crypto finance professor at UCLA Anderson School of Management for those who are getting a master's of financial engineering, and he teaches crypto finance. So we're putting together these education courses on once you've seized those assets, what do you do with them? And we're also partnering with some of the best-in-class crypto investigative firms and track and trace firms on, okay, this is how you seize it, this is what a wallet is, this is how you move assets around. So I've come to the conclusion of my presentation. I'm so sorry I have to go through all of these slides because these are all of the disclaimers that we have to put in all of our material. But I would like to put a call out there, and if anybody is interested in any kind of collaboration on education, we really strongly love what we're doing right now because we feel in our own small way we are helping to get the bad guy and helping to clean up and keep our ecosystem afloat. So thank you so much for your time.